Welcome to Fearless Females, where ambition meets resilience. Meet your guide, Lorie Jones, owner of Fearless Financial Advisors. Join her and remarkable women executives as they uncover the triumphs and transformative moments shaping extraordinary careers. Ready to be fearless? Let the journey begin.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us here on Fearless Females. Thanks. Big shout out to our sponsor, Fearless Financial Advisors. And if you don't mind doing the like or follow or whatever button is on your podcast, that would help grow the listeners to this program. And then even more people will hear these really cool stories, which I'm excited about. So today we're talking with Brooke. And the thing that I loved most about our conversation was that Brooke was in the midst of a great career. Like we actually, we typically go to school and we have those days when you're poor and struggling and you get through school and you start your career and you start your family and you're still kind of poor and struggling, but growing, and then you become successful and it just follows that path, right? Well, Brooke got to that middle part where she had kids and her career was growing and she was starting to get successful, and she decided, guess what? I think I need to go back to school because I want to be an attorney. And she did. She went back to law school at mid-30s to pursue a career that she loved. And what an example she sets for her kids, for the rest of us kind of watching her trajectory. It's really cool to think that if you don't have that traditional path, that traditional, go to school, start your career, work at it for 25 years, if you take like little twists and turns to get where you're meant to go, that's okay. And it's cool. One of my favorite quotes is she says, if you fall off the horse, get back on. And if you and the horse don't get along, find a different horse. I love that. I think you guys are really going to love this interview. Let's get started with Brooke. So we are here with Brooke Cozort. She's an ERISA attorney. I'm so excited. I had the chance to sit down and get to know Brooke just a little bit, and I think she's got an amazing story. So I'm so excited that you decided to join us today. Thank you so much, Brooke.
Sure. Thank you.
So my first question is always the same, and it's my favorite. I love reading. I'm a reader. What is your favorite book?
So I'm a huge reader as well. In fact, I've got about 12 books stacked on my bedside table right now, but mostly my genre is historical fiction. But there was a book that really hit home to me recently. I don't know if you've read All the Light We Cannot See, but it's the same author who wrote Cloud Cuckoo Land. And I loved that book. And I think what hit me the most about that book, the time I read it, which was just maybe 5 months ago, but we're sort of in a time of chaos and sad. And what I loved about that book was just basically the sort of emphasis on you cannot have the light without the dark. And so that there are dark times, but with light comes dark and vice versa. So it just kind of made me feel a little better about the world, I guess. But that's been one of my favorites outside of historical fiction. Although he does throw in history in there.
Yeah, he does. And do you know they've got a Netflix series on it now, I think.
On that one, or All the Light We Cannot See?
All the Light You Cannot See, yeah.
Yeah. Not Cloud Cuckoo Land, but yes, I did know about All the Light, but I haven't seen it yet, but I did hear that.
Yeah. I didn't know he had the Cloud Cuckoo Land. I didn't know that he had another.
It's amazing. One. It spans from, I want to say anyway, it goes all the way into the future and all the way into the past and then current day. So he intertwines the story into history, current and future, and it's amazing.
That sounds like a really good beach read. I love that idea.
It's pretty heavy, but yes, it might be a little heavy for beach, but it's so good.
Well, I actually do a lot of heavy reading at the beach because I don't get to do anything but finance and return on investment and all that sort of stuff during my daily day-to-day sort of thing. So like, even if it's fiction, if it's heavy fiction, I'm good
right.
with it.
Yeah, I'm kind of like you. I actually don't like to waste my time on just true fiction because I just feel like I could be learning something. So I tend not to be too light of a reader either.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your journey, Brooke. Talk to us about how you got started and where you're at now and kind of what you do.
So it's funny because I kind of have to tell you what I did when I was in high school in order to get to where we are today, because I had a mentor in high school and she owned a travel agency, and I delivered airline tickets to corporations all throughout Amarillo, Texas, which is where I grew up. And then when I went to college, I worked at Merrill Lynch, and I loved being in the financial industry. And by the time I had graduated, my mentor that was at the travel agency had transitioned to her own life change and became a financial consultant herself. And so I went around with her. I worked with her for a summer between moving from Austin, Texas to Denver. And so she was a financial consultant that handled mostly group retirement plans. And so I went with her to a 401k meeting and really just liked dealing with more than just one individual. And then also she introduced me to somebody from Denver that worked at Nationwide Financial. And she said, Brooke's about to move to Denver. Do you know of anybody who's looking for an employee that just came out of Merrill Lynch? And they introduced me to this third-party administration firm here in Denver. And kind of the rest is history with that. So I worked with them for 14 years, became an owner of that company after about, let's say, maybe 7 years. And when I became an owner, I'd already taken all these tests to become what's called a certified pension consultant, and then what was called an enrolled retirement plan agent through the IRS, which is sort of gone by the wayside now. But what those designations allowed me to do was to represent clients in front of the IRS for their retirement plan issues that they had. And I kept having clients say, well, we'd rather work with an ERISA attorney, so I would have to refer them to an ERISA attorney. So after a while, I just said, you know what? I love what I do. I could do almost everything an ERISA attorney can do except really practice law. So I decided after 14 years of work in the industry after undergrad to go back to law school. So I went to law school to become an ERISA attorney. All my law school professors thought I was just a crazy person they were just like, really? You're coming to law school to become an ERISA attorney and that's it? And I said, yeah, that's it. That's all I want to do. But at the same time, my son started kindergarten the same year I started law school. So it made for a tough time at law school, both balancing my kids and life. And I did quit work for the 3 years that I went to law school, but I still worked odd jobs just to keep money in the door. And since then, I worked for my TPA firm for 14 years, and I kept running into just dislikes of the legal profession, just being in big law firms. And it wasn't a fit for me. And I just kept thinking, did I do something wrong? Should I have done this? And I now work with a partnership out of Tacoma, Washington, a small law firm of 11 partners. We're all partners, and it's home. I mean, it's the best place. We all support each other. No one's just sort of a pompous attorney that thinks that they're better than it's a great group of partners that just everybody has their back, and it's home. It's where I'll be forever. But I actually still live in Denver, but my office is in Tacoma, Washington.
I love that. So I have so many questions. So do you have to go to like full attorney school, even if all you want to do is like practice? You have to pass the bar and go to
pass the bar. Yep. You have to know about, what's funny is, I never ever thought I would be an attorney. There's very few people. I think there's one other attorney in my family, but I had to Google what a tort was, because one of my first class was torts. And I was like, what is a tort? So I Googled it, and it's just an action against another person that could be a claim for a lawsuit. So yeah, it's just hitting somebody, saying something wrong about somebody, that's all a tort. So, But yeah, you had to take 3 full years, and they don't really specialize in ERISA in law school. So really, I just learned how to be a lawyer. Really, not really. But yeah, you're required to take the bar with all the topics. So yeah, nothing pertained to ERISA on the bar, I guarantee it, nor tax.
And then when you got finished, how did you end up with this practice up in Washington? Are there specific practices that just work with ERISA attorneys, or how does
a lot of times you find ERISA attorneys in big law, because ERISA is such a niche practice that, for some people, it's hard to gain clients if you don't have the big support around you of the big law firms. And so the ERISA attorneys work with the tax group and the business group. And I became an in-house counsel for a third-party administration firm for a couple of years. And I had outside counsel that did whatever work I couldn't do, because technically you're not allowed to practice law unless you're in a law firm. So you can't give opinions. You can only provide guidance and say, well, we can't really give you a full legal opinion. You'll have to go seek advice from a true ERISA attorney. So I would have to refer some of our clients to this ERISA attorney out of Washington. And one day he just said, I'm getting close to retirement. Any chance you would want to come join us and kind of work with me until I retire? And he is still with us. He's still working with us and probably will for a little while longer. But yeah, so I joined their practice, and then they were a small ERISA boutique firm of 4 ERISA attorneys. And then when I joined them, we joined a bigger firm, 7 more people, that they specialize in tax and business. And so you have the bigger law firm where you can refer clients back and forth to each other for, tax will need some ERISA help, mergers and acquisitions will need ERISA help. So we all sort of push clients back and forth to each other. So it's a great relationship.
And just for the listeners out there that are curious, because we keep talking about ERISA, because it is something that it's just like everyday language to both of us.
Right.
But it's an attorney that kind of works with those 401k plans or those
group retirement plans. Yep. So yeah, we work with group retirement plans and keep them in compliance. But yeah. I guess to summarize, my husband would say I work in nerd law. It's a very nerdy practice, but I love it.
I love that. So we're not the Wall Street guys that are like what is it, John Grisham, that writes about lawyers all the time?
Oh, right. Yes. No. And I always have to preface that I am a transactional attorney, which means I don't ever step foot in a courtroom. Mm-hmm. If somebody says they want to sue somebody, I will say you need to find somebody else. I really just do transactional work, not litigation. Mm-hmm. So yes, not John Grisham whatsoever.
So Brooke, think back on your journey. Is there an investment that you've made in yourself that you feel like really made you who you are today? Like you could go back and you're like, oh, I'm so glad I did that.
Well, there's a couple things. And by investment, you can say your investment in your job, but also from a financial standpoint. And I have to say, so when I worked at Merrill Lynch in college, our secretary, or I guess she was more of an administrative assistant to the 2 financial consultants that I worked under, but she, within my first week of working at Merrill Lynch, and this is back when you actually had a little register, like you had a booth, you would go in and deposit checks. And she said, I want you to walk up to the front office. She goes, take $20. I don't care what you do, but go open a Roth IRA right now. And she said, and I don't care what you do, whether you put $10 in, $20 in, you will thank me one day. And I truly do, because it's just to start somebody on the path of investing at such a young age and just to get in that habit. And it really, it's definitely been, fortunately, my husband and I both have a similar saving mindset, but that's the best investment really from a financial standpoint. But I think you'd have to imagine that going to law school was a huge investment. I went to law school when I was 35, and I graduated at 38. And so I just kind of wanted to say is like, life doesn't stop at 40. I've even debated going back and getting my specialization LLM and tax, but it's just like, okay, now I've had enough education. But I would say absolutely my best investment was going to law school.
I love that.
It's a huge investment.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned the Roth IRA. It's near and dear to my heart to get people started early in saving and investing in themselves. And you're right. Like there's an idea of investing in yourself as a person with your law school education, but you also cannot forget that actual investing piece, that actual putting money in an account to save for your future. And future you is so grateful that you did that, right?
Exactly. The idea of compounded interest it is baffling and amazing. So start saving.
Magic. It's magic.
It is magic.
So tell me, did you ever get some really bad advice? Did anyone ever give you some, like the worst advice you've gotten? And did you take it? Did you not take it? Did you learn from it?
Well, one of the biggest things, one day my office was closed. We were always closed on Good Friday at my former third party administration firm. And so I took that day actually with nobody in the office. And I just said, I'm just going to call as many ERISA attorneys that I've met throughout my career just to say, is this really worth it? Because it was, I mean, as I mentioned, I was a parent of two kids. I had a long-standing career. I was an owner, a part owner of a company, and I was just like, is it worth me taking this leap? And it was interesting. So I talked to some non-ERISA attorneys and some generalists. I mean, and a lot of attorneys are very negative about the work that they do. And so many were just like, oh, I would never go to law school. And one truly ERISA attorney who I love his educational platform. And he was just like, I wouldn't do it. And what was interesting was just hearing that and just thinking, and I kind of explained to him who my role model was, which is another wonderful ERISA attorney named Eileen Ferenzi. But I was just like, she went to law school twice because her first time she got her law degree, she was in California at a night program, and you have to go to, it's not a certified law school. I'm trying to think of the name of it. But anyway, she had moved to Georgia. And when she moved to Georgia, they didn't recognize her legal degree because she went to a night program that was not certified. So she was like, so you asked me if going to law school is worth it. I went to law school twice. So it was amazingly worth it. So I guess I would just have to say the people that just said, don't do it. And I also, when people ask me to this day, would you do it again? Absolutely. 6 times out of 10, or 10 times out of 10, I would do it. But I also would highly recommend to anybody looking into it, give life a chance for a bit. You know, MBA programs have a requirement that you work for 2 years, so you come in with some experience. I wish they did that for law school because, I mean, thinking about females and where our life changes after we have kids, and it's just like you put so much money and effort into law school that if like you decide later that this wasn't worth it, it might be a good idea to give a couple of years of life before you take that plunge, because it's not a cheap plunge, and it's not for the faint of heart either.
And it takes so much of your time and
Mhm.
energy and effort. Like it's valid advice and really valuable to kind of look at that and see, is that for you? Is that right for you?
Mhm. Right.
I like that idea. And they do, with the MBA program, I know that they make you go through and you work in the industry for a while, so you kind of get some life experience behind you, which I feel like enriches that MBA program a little bit.
Right. Right. Well, there's I'm going to say kids because I was a grown woman when I went to law school, but there's sort of this concept that's called K through JD. So kindergarten through your law school degree. And these kids haven't left school since they started kindergarten. And that's a long time to be in school. And yeah, your maturity level, I was actually impressed with a lot of the people I went to school with their maturity level. I was like, I was not this mature when I was 22 years old. But anyway, I do think it would be good for some students to have the requirement to take a gap couple of years and grow before going to law school.
What about things that you would do differently? If you could go back and taking all the knowledge that you have now, but go back and redo a situation, is there something that you would do differently, and what and why and how?
So this actually doesn't have anything really to do with my career where I am today, but I was in management whenever I was at the third party administration firm, and I kind of jokingly say I became an attorney so I could get out of management. I don't like managing people, but my younger self, I wish I would have said, I take for granted that some people don't have confidence, and it takes a long time to gain confidence. And there was a person who worked for us at the TPA firm, and the person just did not have a lot of confidence. And instead of being a cheerleader and instead of bringing somebody up, I really put the person down. And to this day, I still regret it. It's just, she ended up leaving the company, and it didn't bode well for us, but it is just sort of like, why do we feel we have to intimidate other females, and maybe not even other females, just people in general? Like, be positive, be like, help mentor people. And so I think that's one of my biggest regrets. And like I said, I don't think I was the greatest manager in general. So I think where I am today and not managing people and just managing my workload is where I belong. But I need to be kinder to those who don't have so much confidence.
That makes sense. And it is hard because you don't, unless you get your MBA, you really don't go to a management school. And even the MBA teaches you a lot more about return on investment than it does about, people, helping and growing people.
Well, and it's so funny. I mean, we look at some of the people who are put in management roles, and it's because they're great at what they do. And so therefore they should proceed upwards. But a lot of times that upward progression means management. And many, many people in this world are not meant for management, but they are put there because that's the next step. But I mean, there are some companies that do such a good job at mentoring their managers and places, systems in place, education passages in place that help these people. But a small TPA firm of 12 people doesn't really have the luxury of that type of education.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too that you realized like this isn't my happy place. It's very easy to feel like, oh, I'm not great at this, or this isn't working really well for me, or even sometimes it is working really well for you. You don't love it. It's not
Right.
You don't love what you do. And so having the ability to look at that and say that this isn't my path, what would fit me better? What would work better for me?
Right.
If you could go back and talk to yourself at the beginning of this journey at, 20, 21 years old, what would you tell yourself? I'm curious, would you tell yourself to go to law school earlier?
No. And I mean, it's still to this day, I mean, it's just like, I always like to say I play a lawyer on TV because I don't really feel like a lawyer because I do what I'm passionate about, the ERISA part, but now I'm an attorney that does it. But it is never, ever, ever. It was never in my game plan at all. But I'm so thankful I took the plunge. But I mean, I think what I would tell my 20-year-old self is just, you're not as cool as you think you are. And there's so much more to see out there. That just give the lemons that are given to you and try and make lemonade. Like, just don't turn stuff down. Don't be scared to try something new. Just enjoy life. Don't get me wrong. But just be willing to accept changes and accept that change can be uncomfortable, but down the line can become rewarding. But yeah, I think that would be my biggest thing is just, yeah, I think that would have to be it, is just accept challenges and be flexible. But no, I don't think I would now knowing what I know, I would absolutely tell myself to go to law school, but not until later. But yeah, I would probably laugh at myself if I told myself to go to law school, because I would not have any desire to do it at that age.
So did you find that if this is your advice to your 20-year-old self, did you find that you were like not flexible enough through the career, or not taking things as they come, or like what would prompt you?
There were times that I looked, because I was at the company for 14 years. And so there were times that I was just like, gosh, is this the right place for me? Actually, at one point in time, I interviewed for a company, a really big company, and they were located in Houston and Oklahoma. And I decided to just go off on a whim. And this was actually before we even had kids. And I decided to go off on a whim and apply for this job. And they ended up accepting, offering me the job. And I found out I was pregnant, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like, I'm literally going to uproot my family. My husband won't have a job wherever we're going. What if something happens with this child? Like, what if? And so I turned him down, and I just said, I can't do it. And what was really crazy is 2 years later, they reached out to me and said, hey, you turned us down before, but would you consider, the person who was going to be your boss has retired. Would you want to come and interview for his position? And I was just like, wow, that's really cool. And I mean, it was a dream job. It really was a dream job outside of being an attorney. And again, I hadn't still being an attorney was not anywhere in my focal point at that point in time. But I went through these interviews. They had me interview in Oklahoma, and then they flew me to Texas. And I mean, I was nailing it. They were the ones who came to me. And I just, all of a sudden, this was right after '08 when the market tanked and lots of people didn't have jobs out there. And there were people that were probably much more qualified than me. And I actually told my husband, I think the only reason they want me is because I'm willing to move to Oklahoma because that's where my husband was from. But I said, there are so many other more qualified people. So, I mean, I interviewed with probably 4 levels up the ranks than my boss would have been. And I get to this corner office in Houston with this, he was very high up in this company. And he just said, do you have any last questions for me? I mean, the interview was going great. And I just said, I do. And I said, why me? And he goes, what? And I mean, like literally, like I said, I was nailing these interviews. And he's like, why me? And I said, there's so many other people you could be interviewing. And I said, I'm young because I was only, I don't know. Well, I guess I had my first child at 30. So I must have been like 33. But I mean, to me, I was a baby and like, I didn't belong in this huge company with all the, and so I guess I just showed him my fear and I do regret that I was just like, why did I do that? Why did I put myself down in an interview that I was nailing? And then they just let me know. And actually the woman who came to me, she almost like didn't want to speak to me anymore. I think like she thought that I was going to be her employee and I screwed it up with her boss's boss. And so that's a big regret of mine is why doubt yourself when people do believe in you? So, maybe I felt like an imposter at the time and it just wasn't working for me. But I still to this day think shoulda, coulda, woulda. What would I have done? Where would I have been had I gotten that position? And
yeah, it probably wasn't your life path, but that's really an interesting way of looking at it. Like those self-doubts or that imposter syndrome or that, what if I'm not good enough? Like maybe process that internally rather than externally. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. Don't tell this CEO or whoever he was, that you don't have the confidence to have the job that he's hiring you to take. So yeah, that was interesting.
What scared you the most when you started your career? Anything? Maybe nothing scared you. And
yeah, no, because I mean, as I mentioned, I was a partner or a part owner in this TPA firm I was with when I decided to take the plunge. And frankly, I was going to go to the night school for law school, work during the day, and be a mom and a spouse. And so that was because I can't say I was the breadwinner. My husband and I both definitely had great jobs, but it was just sort of like, I'm taking this huge leap of faith and I will not have, and I actually ended up deciding to not do the night program, quit my job and go to law school for 3 years. And so it was just like, can we afford to do this? We had, fortunately, our little pennies we had started saving in our Roth accounts had grown nicely. And so we had savings to help through that time. But it was just, can we afford this? Is this crazy? I mean, and also kind of whenever I was asking people, is it worth me going to law school? You didn't want to be like, so how much income am I really going to make when I get out of this? Because you don't know, and you don't want to be a jerk asking that question, but it is just like, what is my potential here? And is taking 3 years off and spending this much money on law school worth it? And so that was scary to me, was just the financial, not insecurity, but just sort of is it going to be worth it question. And I will express the same phrase I expressed earlier, that life does not stop at 40. I mean, keep pushing. Like, it might be scary, but we live longer. So if you're not in the job you don't want to be in, like, push yourself, and it's going to be scary. But at 40, we still have potentially 25 more years of working, if not longer. So yeah, take the plunge, go do something different.
Yeah, do what you love. Yeah, I like that. I always say life is too short to be stuck in a job that you dislike, or
right.
And so finding out what you love and working in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
But my mom went to school and finished her master's when she was like 60 something, 62 or 60.
Well, I mean, I always say I was not the youngest or the oldest person in law school by a long shot. I mean, there was actually a woman I went to law school with. She had saved all this money in her 529 plan for her son, and her son ended up getting a full ride to one of the academies. I think it was maybe the Naval Academy. And so she had all this money, and she goes, "I'm going to go to law school." So yeah, I want to say she was in her late 50s, if not early 60s, when she went to law school with me.
Mm-hmm. What about along your journey, Brooke? Did you run into any unique challenges because you were a woman?
For sure. Yeah, the parenting thing was sure an issue. When I first became the part owner in my company, I just had our first child, and I had to come in town, or I had to come into the office for a meeting while I was on maternity leave. And actually it turns out to be one of my favorite meetings I ever had in my whole career. But I was also nursing my child, and I didn't bring a sweater. And so I'm here at this meeting with, as you can imagine, what was happening with my shirt, interviewing somebody or talking with somebody. But this man, he was this man from India, lived in the United States. He was an auditor, and we were just kind of interviewing to work with him because we worked with audited clients a lot. And so it was, it's sort of kismet that we were put together in this room while I was on maternity leave to have him say, "Brooke, never quit working." Like he said, he said, "I've got a wife who helped raise our kids, but she was always working." He said, it's probably one of the best sort of ways you can show your kid your worth, your value. It's been, like I said, it was one of the greatest meetings. But I couldn't have placed it in a better spot, because while I'm sitting there thinking, I can't afford to send my kids to daycare. I mean, this was well before law school, but yeah, I mean, thinking about the cost of daycare and should I stop working? One of us needs to stop working. And I'm so thankful, because I think now, when my children have gotten to see me go through law school, and it's probably a great representation of how you, and not to say you have to be a workaholic. There's nothing wrong with being a stay-at-home mom, or to just step out of the workforce for a while. But I'm thankful for that, because it's when you see those dollar amounts for daycare costs and think, okay, is it worth me working to make this dollar amount, to pay that dollar amount? It's scary, and it's tough as a woman, and even just crying the first time you drop your kid off at daycare to go to work. But I wouldn't change that either. I want my kids to see me working hard and being a good example for them.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting that as women, we have so many different opportunities. There are challenges as well, but there are so many different opportunities for things that we can do, and ways that we can show our kids that we show up in this world.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I love that as women, we're becoming kind of more supportive towards all those different avenues. There's not just one way of doing things anymore. There's a lot of different options. And I think that, all of us, every person that I've ever talked to and interviewed has had the idea of mom guilt, including myself. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that coming to an understanding that we're making trade-offs sometimes, but that doesn't have to be less than on either side.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it helps to have a very supportive husband, which I do,
Yeah.
who does take a lot of the primary parenting roles that I probably couldn't do without him. So yeah, I definitely have peers that do not have such supportive spouses, that makes it a little bit harder to try and do both.
Yeah. I was recently talking to someone who told me that a single mom could run the world.
Okay.
because you do rely on your spouse a lot of times for those, that back and forth.
Yeah, single moms, I applaud you 1,000%.
Yeah. What
And
about, yeah, exactly. What about, Brooke, what is the thing that you are most proud of?
I think there's a part of me in my law school journey where I was falling down, and pulled myself up by my bootstraps and just said, again, life does not end at 40. Keep working hard at this. And it worked out. But I think just, falling down and getting back up. And they're not even falling down, but going through really bad work experiences post law school, and not giving up. I mean, I've had more anxiety as a lawyer than I ever had before I went to law school. And there's a lot more pressure on you in this, you can be sued. I mean, anybody can be sued, but if you provide bad advice, and it is a very stressful field, but there's people that I think tried to put me down or tried to make me believe that I wasn't worth being in this industry. And I kicked them. I kicked off the feelings and kept moving forward. So I think just getting back up after you fall down is just really important.
Any suggestions for how you find the courage and fortitude and gumption to pick yourself up? Because it's a discouraging place. I've been in those places where you're like, why am I even trying today?
It is. And I mean, we kind of could go back to the employee that I had that definitely didn't have the confidence. And I mean, there are definitely people that don't have it. And I'm not to say that, I'm so great because I have this ability to let negativity flow off my back, but it does. It takes, let's just say it takes a lot of life experience to be able to accept negativity. And I mean, I think maybe probably a lot of it comes from just working from a young age and also working at Merrill Lynch. I mean, as you know, as a financial advisor, I mean, we're in a male-dominated world. And so I feel like my whole life, maybe not necessarily when I was with the TPA firm, just because that actually is a lot of females that do that type of work. But I think it's just life. I mean, getting through a lot of different adventures. The boss I had at Merrill Lynch was really funny. He was very militaristic. He was in the Air Force, but the first time I interviewed with him, I was just going to be an intern. My dad had a good friend at Merrill Lynch in Amarillo, Texas that knew this guy and put me in touch with him. But he sat me down in his office and he goes, "I don't pay interns." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "I don't think you're worth it. And so I'm not going to pay you." And we start at 8 a.m. and 8 a.m. means 7:55. And if you're not here at 7:55, I expect donuts. And so I ended up working there for 3 years. I loved him, but I always say that was probably the best person I ever worked for. And he was so mean at the first, but I mean, but after, I want to say, let's say, I don't know, maybe it was 6 weeks, he brought me back into his office and he said, "Okay, you've proven yourself. I'll start paying you now." So, it's just sort of one of those things gosh, how old was I? I must have been 19 years old and having this guy just, "I don't pay you. You're not worth it." So it's just like, okay, but I just want experience. So thank you. But I do. I love, his name was OB and I love, he was a great person to work for.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Any advice for a young woman who's just starting down the path that you're already successful at? And I literally don't know what path you would choose. Like, is it the lawyer path? Is it the TPA path? Is it the mom path? Like, you choose. But
Right.
Any advice for her?
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you mentioned this. So there was a woman that I met just recently, and she was very new to this industry. And I was so impressed with her. I was like, I think you're 22 years old, and she's sitting here just asking different women in our group, what would you do if you were me? And I was just like, you're doing all the right things. You're sitting here asking pretty successful people in this industry, how can I do what you're doing? And I was so impressed with her. And so I would say, if you can gain the confidence, and there's places you can get confidence. You can there's places called like Toastmasters International that teach you about presenting. I mean, the more confidence you can have walking into a room, and I mean, literally you can completely set the tone, whether in a positive or a negative way, when you walk into a room, whether you're slouched or you're standing straight up. I mean, their body language is so much, but I mean, just being confident and being able to, like I said, I was so impressed with this 22-year-old, if that, maybe she was 24, whatever it was, but still impressed that she had that confidence. And so, yeah, I mean, any which way you can find confidence. And if that's just asking questions and getting a good response, hopefully then that built her up to feel confidence the next time. But one thing I'd like to say is, if you fall off the horse, get back on. And if you and the horse don't get along, then find a different horse. As you said earlier, life is too short to work in a job you don't like. And so I guess just try it out. But it is, I mean, if you're going to either in the financial industry or in the legal industry, we are in a male-dominated universe in both of those industries. So you've just got to roll with the punches. You have to have a sense of humor. If somebody's going to be a jerk, just smile and move on. But yeah, it's I would say either way, either path has been a very rewarding path for me.
I love that. I love that. And I love the idea that if you fall off the horse and you don't like the horse, find a different horse. I think that's hilarious. I think I'm going to put that quote somewhere on my vision board.
Find a different horse. There's plenty of horses out there.
Lots. Well, thank you so much, Brooke, for your time today. I really appreciated hearing about your journey. If I have a listener who wants to get in touch with you, ask questions, pick your brain, get some advice, how does she do that?
Feel free. You can email me. My personal email is just brookecozort@gmail.com, and that's BROOKECOZORT@gmail.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for spending the time with us.
Yep. Thank you.